My name is Richard, and this is If You Only Knew. This report is titled, Nothing Can Stop This is not just a catchphrase. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you it takes a lot of time and research to produce these reports, but I have a secret weapon, CBD-infused coffee from ifyouonlyknewcbd.com. I found personally that it gives me more focus and energy to start my day with a cup of CBD-infused coffee, which is made with nutrient-dense superfood chaga mushrooms. Chaga contains a wide variety of vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. Chaga is also known to slow the aging process, lower your cholesterol, prevent and fight cancer, lower your blood pressure, and support the immune system as well as fight inflammation. Plus, it's infused with the highest quality CBD oil. Now, if you don't drink coffee, that's fine. There's all kinds of amazing CBD products, including hair care, skin care, treats for pets, and I'm naming just a few. There's also tinctures where you can get the concentrate right there. Another favorite is the coffee berry extract, which also gives you a little boost of energy and only the highest quality level of CBD oil. Now, how do I know it's highest quality? Well, we show you the data. That's right. You can see the actual reports showing that this is the highest quality. Folks, there's a lot of junk out there, but not here. Here you get the real deal. Check out ifyouonlyknewcbd.com or click the link below. Now, before we get into the latest developments, 2 movies have been released that I want to bring to your attention. The first is the Antifa movie, for which I will play the trailer momentarily. But this was announced immediately yesterday, and already it's been restricted on Twitter. When you go to the Twitter page, Antifa movie, it'll be dark, but you can hit accept and you should be able to see it. It's so long as Jack Dorsey doesn't suspend the movie account and claim it violates the latest terms of service, which, as we know, has been their most recent tactic of account suspension. Otherwise, you can go to antifamovie.com. It's also on YouTube, but as you know, it'll probably be taken down if it hasn't already been taken down by the time this video airs. Thermidorian wrote, "The third arm of the extreme left simply doing their job, Jack. Per Dinesh D'Souza, well, number 1, academia, 2, the media, 3, Hollywood, and actually he forgot the obvious one, big tech, like Twitter and fascist books." Speaking of fascism, here's the trailer itself.
Nazis go home! Nazis go home! Nazis go home!
So if Trump gets reelected, what?
Cities burned.
Times to be organized and orchestrated chaos.
They call everybody they disagree with Nazis.
I felt like I had no choice but to do what I did.
So yeah, kill them. Kill the Nazis.
Long live the socialist revolution.
And when conditions become right, people do get the opportunity to change the whole system through a revolutionary struggle.
Die Brüderlichen und die revolutionären Grüße.
The International Revolutionary People's Guerrilla Forces work to defend social revolutions around the world.
We gotta fight it out. We're gonna remake this country in the street.
Liberals get the f***ing wall first.
Someday, we gotta knock those motherfuckers who control this thing right on their ass.
You can see how this film will be instrumental in red-pilling a lot more people, so please tell folks about this movie and share this information far and wide. Next, there's another movie I want to bring to your attention that is a perfect example of predictive programming designed to drive fear and ultimately control. This is a Michael Bay Hollywood production, which essentially shows the globalist plan to mandate lockdowns and quarantines for another version of COVID. In this case, what the movie is referring to is COVID-23. Now, given that YouTube is probably going to be policing the content on behalf of this well-funded major Hollywood studio, I'm only going to be able to play a small portion of the full clip. The Antifa movie is not from a massive Hollywood production company, out for blood and copy strikes like this movie is from a Hollywood studio, but you can watch the full trailer online at songbirdmovie.com.
Curfew is now in effect. All unauthorized citizens must stay indoors.
Tensions rise as we enter the 213th week of lockdown.
A grim new reality emerges.
COVID-23 has mutated.
Beginning thermal scan. Thermal scan normal.
A horrifying new development
New
today.
data confirms the virus attacks the brain tissue.
Hey, whoa, I'm immune! I'm immune!
Worldwide death toll rises to over 110 million.
All infected Americans are being forced into quarantine camps.
Sarah, what's going on?
Sarah, talk to me.
I think my neighbor has a fever.
Now, if Hollywood was shut down, when was this movie made? I raise this as an obvious red flag. Also, recently during debates, Joe Biden referred to a long dark winter, and that we know that this was in some way clearly meant to reference some type of elevated pandemic scenario, and we already knew that there was plans to begin a second wave. Coincidentally, this is a screenshot from the Ingram angle, where as you can see, this is actually already happening right now in New Zealand. People are being sent to quarantine camps if they refuse testing. Now, none of this should come as a surprise to anyone. We just heard Europe begin locking down again. Here's a tweet from a patriot in the UK announcing that Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced a nationwide lockdown in England. By the way, while we're on the subject of the UK, there was an interesting odd announcement by the official biographer that the Queen Elizabeth will pass the throne to Prince Charles. Now, this is interesting because we know the swamp is being drained worldwide, not just in the USA. The Queen has supposedly held onto the throne for 67 years, though we've barely seen her whatsoever in the past year. Also, Buckingham Palace was also placed for sale a month back for £4.9 billion, or $6.5 billion, which seems odd to sell the UK's national symbols unless something big is about to happen. And you know that what happens here in the United States will affect the world. As we know, where we go one, we go all. And this is not just another 4-year election. Now, while we're on the topic of agendas, let's explore another agenda that has been recently exposed and pushed by the mainstream media that is being referred to as the Great Reset. A letter was sent by Carlo Maria Vigiano, the former apostate to the U.S., to the president, that issued a dire warning that the Great Reset's architect is the global elite who financed the World Economic Forum and Event 201 to subdue humanity, impose coercive measures to drastically limit individual freedoms, and to those of the entire world populations. Now, while the plan cancels debts and ensures universal income, it also means the end to private property and the adherence to a mass vaccination program promoted by Bill Gates in collaboration with Big Pharma that requires a health passport and a digital ID. Those that do not accept these measures are to be confined to detention camps and have all their possessions confiscated. Now, it's a long letter, so I won't read the entire thing, but I will play for you a highlight clip where Vigiano specifically calls out the New World Order. Watch this.
I believe that now is an opportune time for me to deliver the following address. The subject of my talk would be how the revolution of Vatican II serves the New World Order. We live in extraordinary times. As each of us has probably understood, we find ourselves in a historical moment in time. Events of the past, which once seemed disconnected, prove now to be unequivocally connected, both in the principles that inspire them and in the goals they seek to achieve. A fair and objective look at the current situation cannot help but grasp the perfect coherence between the evolution of the global political framework and the role that the Catholic Church has assumed in the establishment of the New World Order.
Now, I want to clarify that while this is being pushed, the president has actually been making preparations over the past 4 years. While the central bank economy still essentially controls the world through currency and debt, the president has been busy establishing a second economy. Look at how medical manufacturing was set up during the quarantine to produce PPE, respirators, and pharmaceuticals. Remember that before the pandemic, 95% of our antibiotics came from China. That's not all. The president has been revitalizing shipbuilding, the production of steel, and the return of the automotive industry as well as manufacturing. This has all been in preparation to cut off the central banks in the second term of the presidency. After the election, and after the swamp is drained, and after we see all the arrests, and after the world is red-pilled, there will be one more major challenge remaining. But again, this is going to come later in the second term. It's for this reason, by the way, that this channel will continue to help you prepare for what is next and how you'll need to be ready to protect your wealth using gold and other precious metals. But again, this is going to come later down the line. But going back to the reset, this will likely happen in other countries. But for the globalists to succeed, they needed the USA to be on board. Except they never expected Donald J. Trump to be elected, and they didn't expect him to be reelected. Remember this meme: they're not after me. They're after you, and I am just in their way. Again, this is the second battle I'm referring to with central banks, which will be in term 2. Before we move on to the headlines, I want to point out that one of the purposes of the IRS is to collect revenues in order to pay off the central bank's debt. And if the USA cuts off the central banks, what do you think happens to your paycheck? You see more of it. And in 2021, you'll get to have a taste of that through the president's payroll tax holiday as it's implemented. Now, this was supposed to happen a lot sooner, as the executive orders were signed. But as you can imagine, the deep state and the corrupt politicians blocked this as the way they did stimulus checks. And by the way, the president has stated that after elected, the people will be seeing another round of stimulus. So you can look forward to that. Next, I want to cover the most recent developments of the laptop, because there's been so many. By the way, I do believe that this has been what our favorite Anon referred to as a week to remember. Now, let's start with this clip from former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who I hope you all follow on YouTube with his show Common Sense. This was from the Thursday broadcast. Listen to this.
So, you want proof? New York Times? You want proof? Twitter? You want proof? Facebook? You want proof, you corrupt, lying, whatever you are? Here's the proof. I didn't write it. Russians didn't write it, and I didn't get the 30 million. Your prince got it. The Prince of Darkness, Joe Biden. The guy who used his son, a drug addict, to be his bag man. Why do you think his son lost his teeth at 40 years old? Because under this kind of pressure, working with murderers and organized criminals like Mykola Zoshevsky and Elena Buturina and Xi Jinping at the bottom of the river, and Whitey Bulger's nephew. What do you think happens to a drug addict, Dad, when you put him in with people like that? He becomes a much worse drug addict. He becomes a degenerate drug addict. You couldn't find some bum in Washington to do this for you? You had to use your son and ruin his life? And you want to be president of our country? My goodness, you should check in to the local federal prison and start doing your time. That's where you belong, not in the White House. You used your family to pick up your bribes, hide your bribes, live the life of a billionaire. And by the way, I don't think you failed in all those negotiations just because you're stupid. I think you failed in those negotiations because you sold out the United States of America. That's what I think you did. And you were ready to do it again if we didn't catch you. This whole deal was done in anticipation of your being president with the Chinese intelligence services. And I don't care if the liberal media covers up for you. Some of them are just as corrupt as you are. And some of them are so taken with hatred, they can't see the better good of their country. They're willing to sell out our entire country just to get rid of Donald Trump. Joe, you've been a thief for 30 years. Your son says it right here. It would be a tragedy for this country. Our system of justice would be ruined if you're not brought before the bar of justice and held accountable the way any ordinary American would be. Until we fix that, we don't fix this country.
Upsetting to say the least. And as Jack Posobiec pointed out, Biden Sr. isn't just selling out his own son. Hunter allegedly refused to acknowledge his baby, which he abandoned and refused to pay child support for, which means that Joe Biden wouldn't stand up for his own grandchild. The revelations are seemingly never ending with this story. By the way, before we go further, it's important to notice that these revelations are coming from more than one source. First, there was the 3 hard drives released by former Mayor Giuliani. The second was the Chinese billionaire descendant, which is the GTV materials that I posted last week. However, the mainstream media remains silent, and that meant a third wave needed to be sent. And this was the Tony Bobulinski interview with Tucker Carlson, which had a record audience of 7.56 million on the first night alone. However, despite the never-ending shocking contents in the laptop that I barely scratched the surface of last week, this week we saw that the laptop contained personal phone numbers to the Clintons, Secret Service, most of the Obama cabinet members, Mitch McConnell, Debbie Wasserman, Nancy Pelosi, and a long list of the highest-profile members of our government, as well as a database of over 1,500 prominent individuals that included the lead singer of Coldplay, Gwen Stefani, and other well-known public figures. The laptop showed also $21,000 was spent on live cam porn images, as well as Hunter's passport, credit card, and pretty much everything you'd want to be kept protected and safe from identity theft. It was only protected, however, by Hunter's password, Hunter02. Nothing was encrypted, meaning this would not require the world's greatest hacker to infiltrate. Some would even say this is a legitimate national security nightmare. Now, we know that Hunter was part of the BYG program we spoke of last week, and that means that the CCP had all this information as well. However, the public focus hasn't been on what's on the laptop. Many of us know what's on it. In fact, apparently it was even used to upload videos and porn to Pornhub so that Hunter could profit from the contents with underage women and while using drugs. We have yet to see the full contents, and many of us already don't really want to see it. But we know from our favorite Anon that you will have the choice whether to see. But the story that has really come the focus of this massive tidal wave was the public exposure of the censorship by the media and big tech. I do believe this was the plan of the Patriots all along, to expose this to the public. Last week spoke of the Streisand effect and how when you hide something, more people want to see it. Well, what happens when people want to see it and they're not allowed to see it because it's censored? Well, just in the past week, the Patriots utterly exposed big tech, social media, the mainstream media, and they showed the world that they are the true enemy of the people. Even worse, it essentially proved that the media, for the most part, is just a weaponized arm of the Democratic Party.
Why they need us?
It was 14 days before the Post Twitter account was unblocked. And just as a reminder, this is one of the oldest papers in the United States with the fourth largest circulation and was founded by Alexander Hamilton. As a result, the Twitter stock has been sent into a massive freefall of 21% on just the first day alone. SEC complaints are being filed against Jack Dorsey. But something equally sinister also reared its ugly head: sympathy for the Iranian leader, which seems to have glorified violence. This wasn't censored whatsoever. We now know that from last week who is in control of these platforms. Listen to this.
Words are the new weapons. Satellites, the new artillery. Caesar had his legions. Napoleon had his armies. I have my divisions. TV, news, magazines. And by midnight tonight, I'll have reached and influenced more people than anyone in the history of this planet, save God himself. Mr. Wallace, call the president. Tell him if he doesn't sign the bill, we'll release a video of him with a cheerleader in the Chicago motel room.
Absolutely.
And after he signs the bill, release the tape anyway. Excuse me. I'm having fun with my headlines. The presses. This just in. I want full newspaper coverage. I want magazine stories. I want books. I want films. I want TV. I want radio. I want us on the air 24 hours a day. This is our moment. And 1 billion people around this planet will watch it, hear it, and read about it. There's no news like bad news.
Agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
As you will recall, this resulted in Jack Dorsey having to appear before the Senate, where he was called out by Senator Cruz, who asked, Who elected you? Documents from the laptop have also revealed that Mark Zuckerberg is implicated as an investor to deals with Hunter Biden, which tells you enough about the motivations behind Facebook's relentless censorship as well. Fortunately, this is all setting the stage for what will happen in term 2 in regards to the consequences. And we know that from our favorite Anon that these will all end up regulated. Additionally, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani has also said that after the election, the president will tear down Facebook, Twitter, and Google. Interestingly enough, while most mainstream media like NPR are refusing to discuss the laptop, it would seem that some mainstream media outlets just recently are doing a 180 and now trying to cover the story. Here's ABC.
At issue was Hunter Biden profiting off his dad's work as vice president, and did Joe Biden allow it? We're talking about millions of dollars in at least 2 countries. Mr. Vice President, Tom Yamas with ABC News. How you doing? Got a quick question for you.
It's a question we tried to ask repeatedly. Can we ask you about Ukraine and China? But kept getting blocked.
That's not all. Here's also CNN, who isn't really going into the details, but starting to walk back the story and questioning how Hunter got this position from Burisma, despite no qualifications having been kicked out by the military for drug use.
But frankly, it does stink that Hunter Biden got this contract with no expertise in the energy sector. And he's already said, basically, he probably got that money, which was significant, because of his connection with his father, the vice president at the time.
Now, this is just my opinion, but I'm willing to bet that right after the election, more media will cover the story. Not because they want to, but because the stories become so big that it implicates them within the cover-up as an accessory. My assertion is that they're going to only do this so they don't get named along with big tech as conspirators, which they essentially are. Now, strangely enough, it's not just this story and support for the president that's been censored. We also saw that the border chief was censored for hailing the success of the wall after 450 miles were completed as a form of hate speech, which doesn't really make any sense unless you're really just trying to censor another one of the president's accomplishments. I think Anomaly phrased this beautifully in this tweet. Political correctness is just fascism pretending to be kindness. They shut out free speech by design. They will say the truth is racist, sexist, xenophobic, and anti-Semitic. And that deception of false smears will come from both sides of politics. Well said. Again, I do believe this was the plan of the Patriots, to show the people who do not know about our favorite Anon that this was all very real and potentially the greatest threat to American civil liberties. As Chad Wolf has labeled Twitter exactly that, a national security threat. Now, while all this is going on in the spotlight, a lot's been going on outside of the spotlight. Listen to this clip from Las Vegas I posted last week regarding human trafficking.
And on a very human level, Mr. President, this industry has trained almost 1 million truck drivers across the country to recognize and report signs of human trafficking. Right. And we commend your administration's efforts and successes in combating this evil. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I love what you just said, human trafficking. That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We also saw Ivanka Trump hold a rally, invited law enforcement who worked on recent human trafficking rescues on stage to thank them personally.
We just want to thank Ivanka for coming here today. And we are blessed that you are here, and we appreciate that your passion for human trafficking and for the children. Thank you.
Because of amazing human beings like this that we're going to stamp out this evil. And because the president is bringing the full force and weight of our government to combat it. Thank you.
Altogether, there's been massive strides by this administration, unlike any before the president, in rescuing children, arresting traffickers, and exposing how the media, big tech, and celebrities have all been complicit all along, like this tweet from Joy Behar from The View. I don't care about Jeffrey Epstein. I don't care if the Democrats are pedophiles. I am proud to be a Democrat. Nothing will ever change my mind, not even this. Now, it won't be until term 2 that we truly expose this evil and put an end to this for good, because it's continuing. Big tech is still trying to obfuscate the truth from the public, which they know is coming. Jordan posted how Facebook is now rerouting the Save the Children hashtag to what they're defining as credible child rescues. So be cautious as to what you hashtag. Instagram, by the way, has even suspended hashtags. Also regarding human trafficking, you saw this week how Keith Raniere was sentenced to 120 years in prison for running his cult Nexium that essentially forced young actresses into prostitution. I'm especially glad this was in Spotlight, even if it was just for a moment, because right now everything you're seeing in the media is more about fear-mongering. Just days before the election, there's been a massive COVID spike. It's only now, all of a sudden, that we're seeing shutdowns in France, Belgium, and the United Kingdom, as I mentioned earlier in the report. However, as most of us know already, and the public will learn after the election, the numbers are inflated, as we saw a 98% drop in the flu. We also know that the more we test, the more cases we see, and that the recovery rate for the most part is 99%, and that there's virtually no fatalities. Furthermore, we know the president will end the shutdown, and that this is for driving fear, while at the same time the leftist media is also creating panic and projecting fear that there's going to be massive civil unrest, prompting D.C. and other cities across the U.S. to, as Rogan O'Hanley says, board up like a Category 5 hurricane. We saw in Philly a van discovered loaded with explosives and suspicious equipment. Millie Weaver obtained footage of federal employees planning to shut down cities, annex buildings, block routes. Here's a clip.
Come to BLM Plaza anytime after 4 p.m. on election night. On the 5th, we're going to shut down the White House.
Map the White House and know every access point so we knew we could blockade it.
On the 6th, we're going to shut down larger parts of Washington, D.C.
We've been working on a target map and a framework for scenario. So where are all the police stations? Where are all the key government buildings? Who are the Trump boosters?
Members of Congress that are coming in, we're going to meet them at the airports or at Union Station and send them back to where they came from until we deal with the situation that we're in.
We are going to be in a crisis, but we want it to be one that we are creating. Whoever's got the guns can win.
Also, here's an Instagram post that circulated, and on the bottom it reads, regardless of whether we're holding Joe Biden accountable for his promises to the country or condemning the re-election of Donald Trump, after Election Day, we will be ready. However, regardless, the Patriots knew the playbook, and the Patriots are in control with the National Guard in place, already there to subdue rioters. Now, obviously, there's going to need to be riots in order to make arrests, so there will be some unrest, but this is well planned in advance. Now, I'm not saying this will be an easy week. No way am I suggesting that. More than likely, it will definitely not. We will likely still see the emergency broadcast signal, internet and media social blackouts. It is now time to put on the armor of God. As we approach 0 hour, I do believe we're going to see a red wave like never before. Nothing like this has ever happened in history. This is going to be a landslide like no other. Here's a tweet from James Woods on the Butler, Pennsylvania rally with a pretty large crowd of almost 58,000 people. And here's another parade of 85 miles with a 20,000 car caravan. And that wasn't the only one. There was another one of 96 miles in Arizona and another one in Long Island, New York. We see also more Democrats at rallies than ever imagined and support from every corner of the world. Here's one in Jerusalem of motorcyclists supporting the president. This is history in the making, folks. Jack Posobiec even caught a glimpse of Biden advisors shopping their resumes around D.C. This isn't something you do when you believe you're going to win. Nothing can stop this. Nothing. Now, we're almost done here, but not quite. Even after the election, after 1807 is enacted, we also have a mission to help everyone else awaken. As John Reese tweets, are you ready for the world to change from dark to light, indoctrination to awakening? Be ready, patriots. John Reese also tweeted, we were all chosen specifically for this mission of taking back the world from the grips of evil forces. We all have a purpose of being a candle guiding others through darkness. We all have a special power within us, the power of God. Do not give up, patriots. I want to thank you for watching this report and my channel altogether. Given how YouTube has censored the Antifa movie and all that I've said in this video, I expect this will be the last one for sure. Again, I'm surprised that I'm still here. I do hope to remain and continue delivering the truth as the war isn't over after the election. As I stated earlier, there's going to be another major challenge we all face with the central banks, and that will only come after the difficult stuff with the indictments and the crimes against humanity. There's so much more I want to share, but as I mentioned, I do need a break to plan my relocation to Texas from New York City, and that means a pause in the channel should it survive the next purge. Again, I thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege serving with you. I also want to say a special thank you to Richard Holliday for your really generous donation last week, as well as George Paradalis and Dennis Dodd. You guys were the only 3 patients this whole time, but I'm grateful to you guys. If you like this video and you'd like to support my work, the PayPal link is in the description. Please also like, subscribe, and share. Given the level of censorship, I do expect this is probably going to be it, and that I will likely find my channel deleted, just like all the rest. If not, I'll continue, but if it does get deleted, find me on social media. If you only knew RB on Twitter, if you only knew Richard on Facebook, and if you only knew on Parler. Yes, I've been meaning to set up a backup channel, but doing all this is exhausting, and I'm usually operating on 3 hours of sleep already, just trying to make good content that you will enjoy and find informative. As you know, I like to end on a lighter note. I usually like to end with a funny clip. Did you know that Robin Williams had done a stand-up routine on Joe Biden? Enjoy. My name is Richard, and this is If You Only Knew.
We still have comedy, though. We still have great comedy out there. There's always rambling Joe Biden. What the fuck? Joe says shit that even people with Tourette's go, no. No. What is going on? Joe is like your uncle who's on a new drug and hasn't got the dosage right. I'm proud to work with Barack America. He's not a superhero, you idiot. Come here. When FDR was on television, there was no TV back then. Come here, Joe. Sit down.
Very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental fitness.
For President Trump and the demagogues around the world, but if Donald Trump is reelected, he doesn't want to shed light. He wants to generate heat, and he's stoking violence in our cities.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump.
What you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
Where I come from, you don't get far unless you ask. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. Look me over. If you like what you see, help out. One nominated Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, a proud Democrat. An Obama Democrat. Sure enough. An Obama Democrat. And, there was, I think that the former senator I heard that familiar voice, you know what I mean, just spoke. Well, he's right about one important thing. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by, you know the thing. I'm beginning to see why your wife left you. Why attack Sanders? Why? You're getting nervous, man. COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, it's taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. When you think about it. You know, the rapidly rising I don't know. I just spoke at Dartmouth on healthcare at the medical school, or not. I guess I wasn't actually on the campus, but the people from the medical school were at the. I want to be clear. I'm not going nuts. I'm not sure whether it was a medical school or where the hell I spoke, but it was on the campus. I propose, and I'm going to digress slightly. We're in a situation. The president asked me to head up a cancer moonshot. Another country and annexed a significant portion of it called Crimea. He's saying that it was my boss, it was his fault. Guatemala, El Salvador, and to go in and say in Honduras and say, look, I took on Putin in terms of Iraq. In terms of what was going on in Ukraine. By strengthening. By investing $100 billion in education, in global warming efforts. It's a whole range of things.
We can't afford it by just eliminating, beginning to treat work, reward work as much as wealth.
It get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again.
If you want to protect yourself, get a double-barrel shotgun. Have the shells, a 12-gauge shotgun.
They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
No man has a right to raise a hand to a woman in anger. We have to just change the culture, period, and keep punching at it and punching at it and punching at it. It will be a big... No, I really mean it. And immediately change the law in the state of Delaware protecting transgender people. We have to eliminate the funding gap that exists between minority white and majority white and non-white districts. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him. Corruption? Trump was out there tweeting again this morning. I call him President Tweety.
This guy is moving to foment hate. You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying, dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh?